William Shakespeare Lesson 1. Introduction. The primary objective of this unit is to get you introduced to the age of Elizabeth and the conditions of the days of Shakespeare's England. The present lesson focuses on the literary concepts of that time. After reading this lesson, you will be familiarized with the importance of the Renaissance and concepts like miracles and mysteries, morality plays. You will also come to know the origin of the Elizabethan theatre. By the end of this lesson, you are expected to form an idea on the concepts this period. 1.3 The Age of Elizabeth. Salient features of the Elizabethan age. The most important characteristic that marks this age from the rest is the comparative religious tolerance. England did not witness any religious war like the 30 Years' War which rocked the continent. When Elizabeth came to power, the kingdom was divided into various religious concentrations. While the north was largely Catholic, the south was Protestant. While Scotland followed Reformation in its own way, Ireland adhered to its religious traditions and conventions. The two groups representing the interests of both the countries actively involved in court intrigues to win the Queen's favour. The Queen dexterously handled both the groups, that is the Catholics and the Protestants, and drew on their support. The defeat of Spanish Armada by England not only established Reformation as a fact in England but also enthused people with the spirit of nationalism. This victory established England as a formidable naval force in the Atlantic. Unlike the previous age in which the finer minds engrossed in religious polemics failed to pay much attention to the creative aspect of human mind, this age comparatively free from religious strife. Intrigues and persecutions devoted more time to the creative impulse in man. Thus it became the most productive period in English literary history. On the social side, this age was comparatively peaceful and marked by contentment. Establishment of trade with other countries brought a lot of wealth into England, and this led the rulers to take a systematic care of the needy. The rich were taxed, and looking after the poor became the responsibility of the parishes. The growing wealth, improvement in the standard of living, more employment opportunities etc. contributed to the social contentment. The adventures of the English explorers set the people's imagination on fire. Drake charted the sea route around the world which later was used by the English colonizers. The young philosopher Bacon claimed with confidence, "I have taken all knowledge for my province." The opening of new lands and new vistas of knowledge fired the explorers and the scholars with new enthusiasm. While her explorers search the new world for the foundation of youth, her poets are creating literary works that are young forever. The growth and development of scientific spirit, that is the spirit of inquiry, the goal of which is to conquer the forces of nature, is best personified in the character of Prospero in The Tempest. While the explorers like Drake, Hawkins and others were busy exploring new lands, the poets of the age were busy describing the lands of dreams. W.J. Long aptly sums up the age thus: "The age of Elizabeth was a time of intellectual liberty, of growing intelligence and comfort among all classes, of unbounded patriotism, and of peace at home and abroad." Shakespeare's England. The living conditions in the towns of England were bad. The Puritans had become a strong political party and exercised a strict discipline over manners and morals as well as over entertainments. There were some cruel sports and pastimes as fights between cocks and bear baiting. Shakespeare uses the language of bear baiting in Act 5, Scene 7, lines 1-2 of Macbeth. The Elizabethans were fond of hunting. The sport was conducted with trained hounds, bows and arrows which Shakespeare mentioned in the drama. All these allusions were instantly understood and enjoyed by the audience. Shakespeare used technical terms from archery, the game of bowls, and wrestling which were popular in his days. There was the religious strife between Catholics and Protestants. The Catholics were thought to be plotting against the government. In Shakespeare's drama, there is also a reference to the styles and fashions in dress of the time. Young men brought back clothes of French or Italian cut, which is satirized in The Merchant of Venice. The Elizabethans were very superstitious and believed in the mysterious influences which they thought the stars exercised over the fortunes of men. Actors and writers of plays were anxious to gain royal favor. The term, Elizabethan age, covers a period which extends into the reign of the Queen's successor James I. People were greatly interested then in the union of England and Scotland. Under James I, Shakespeare in his play Macbeth makes the witch's prophecy the coming of the union. The Elizabethans were backward in social life but were beginning to strike out in arts and science. The superstitions of the 16th and 17th century were nearer in some aspects to the thought of the Middle Ages, and England with all these aspects figures in Shakespeare's plays. In Shakespeare's England, there were few established successful dramas and it was a problem to find fresh plays to entertain and attract theatre-going public. Shakespeare searched in old British history, in folklore, in the literatures of the ancient Greeks and Romans or of other nations till he found some story which seemed good material for a successful play. Shakespeare refashioned and transformed the events as he thought necessary. Origin and principles of drama. English drama began in the 8th century when Saxon kings were rulers of England. The church used drama as a medium to instruct and entertain people. The village people who were illiterate were spectators. The church showed the people important events from the Bible on simple platforms or enclosed spaces with a scanty setting. Thus simple plays followed to illustrate moral or religious principles. Monks, the actors, personified man's nature and qualities. A young girl in white dress personified innocence and a man in a black cloak personified sin or vice. Innocence, lights to prevent vice, and succeeds. The plays staging biblical events were called miracle plays, and the plays of moral lessons were called morality plays or moralities. Subsequently the characters became actual persons and not merely moral types. Some plays were just for amusing the audience. Meanwhile Greek tragedies by Aeschylus and Seneca and comedies by Aristophanes influenced English drama. They were regarded as perfect models of drama. On the basis of the dramas, Aristotle frames rules of dramatic construction. These rules came to be called Aristotle's unities. They are: 1. The unity of time, which restricts the entire action of the drama to one day only. 2. The unity of place, which binds the action of the drama to one place only, it does not allow the change of place. 3. The unity of action, demands that the drama should have only one main story or plot, and there is no place for subordinate or additional episodes. These rules are mainly meant for maintaining dramatic unity and for ensuring completeness and form. Aristotle also frames a general plan for the course of dramatic events to follow. A drama should be in 5 divisions or stages. 1. The exposition, in which the opening situation shows the audience the cause of the beginnings of the action of the drama. 2. The rising action. In this stage, events move up to a situation which arises directly from the causes shown in the exposition. 3. The crisis or climax is a stage in which the dramatic action reaches its highest point. This effect, with its tensions and strain, comes directly from the causes in the exposition. 4. The falling action. Here the interest is not so intense and there is less uncertainty and suspense. We can notice the destination of the character's movement. The problem is nearing solution. 5. The catastrophe. The final ending or solution of the problem, of the plot. As the time passed, these 5 stages became 5 acts of the drama. Shakespeare's dramas were written for continuous action without intervals in between. Later editors divided Shakespeare's plays into 5 acts. All these rules of Aristotle constitute the dramatic form. Shakespeare evolved his own method. His characters were lifelike and commanded the action. He did not follow the regularity of the Greek form. Shakespeare had his own idea of dramatic unity meant for pleasing his patron. He disregarded the Greek unities. Aristotle and other theorists said that a drama must be either tragedy or comedy. They were not for a play combining serious and comic elements. But Shakespeare, who holds a mirror up to nature, did not agree with this. He mingles tragic and comic elements in a single play. Shakespeare aimed at giving a true picture of life which was seldom all serious or all gay. This comic and tragic mingling in Shakespeare's play gives variety and also provides a contrast. Because of this freedom of Shakespeare, we call him a romantic dramatist. Romantic means free and unrestrained. A classical drama adheres to established rules and traditions. Shakespeare authored with his unexcelled dramatic skill in four greatest tragedies, namely, Hamlet, Othello, King Lear and Macbeth. Hamlet, which is a play of revenge, is modified on Kidd's Spanish tragedy. Othello is a domestic tragedy. The other two plays are called chronicle histories with variations. 1.3 The Renaissance. The age of Shakespeare was profoundly influenced by the new temper of the Renaissance. It is felt that had Shakespeare not been born in the Renaissance, he could not have become such a great writer as he is. In the plays of Shakespeare, some elements symbolically represent the moral turbulence and turmoil of the times. A glance at the Renaissance is necessary to understand Shakespeare and his plays properly. Renaissance is considered as a turning point in European history. It is turning point because this was the time where the European mind was liberated from the control of the Church, where human spirit was freed to explore nature to explain man and the world. It was from this time that the spirit became the mark of civilization. In the so-called Dark Ages, the human spirit was fettered by chains of ignorance and dogmatism. The mind was made to operate within the limits prescribed by the Church. The Renaissance ushered a new way of approach to life. Nature, man and society were viewed in a new light. The new learning gave the European Renaissance a direction. Bertrand Russell in A History of Western Philosophy says that the authority of the Church in medieval scholasticism was supplanted by the authority of the ancients. The Renaissance stood for humanism, thirst for knowledge and a spirit of inquiry. Renaissance is the name commonly applied to the period of European history following the Middle Ages. It began in Italy in the late 14th century and continued both in Italy and other countries of Western Europe, through the 15th and 16th centuries. During this period there was an awakening and revival of European arts of painting, sculpture, architecture, and literature. There was an explosion of knowledge as it were everywhere. The development came late to England in the 16th century and did not have its flowering until the Elizabethan and Jacobean periods. Sometimes, John Milton is described as the last great of Renaissance period. Renaissance is defined as the birth of the modern world out of the ashes of the Dark Ages. As the discovery of the world and the discovery of man, and as the era of untrammeled individualism in life, thought, religion and art. It brought about a radical change in different spheres of life and knowledge. Some of the important developments are as follows. The new learning. Renaissance scholars of the classics, called humanists, revived the knowledge of the Greek language, discovered and disseminated a number of Greek manuscripts and added to the number of new authors. They expanded the intellectual tone and tenor of the age. The invention of the printing press led to the spread of knowledge through printed books. The Renaissance scholar was an all-rounder and a man of many parts. Leonardo da Vinci in Italy and Sir Philip Sidney in England are often represented as embodying the many aspects of the courtly ideal. The values of the age were represented in such writers as Erasmus and Baldassare Castiglione, in his book, Tu Cortegiano or, The Courtier. The New Religion. The Reformation led by Martin Luther King 1483–1546, struck at the very root of the institutionalism of the Roman Catholic Church. It attacked the corruption of the Roman Catholic Church. This early Protestantism stressed the individual's inner experience of spiritual struggle, and salvation was regarded as a direct transaction with God in the theater of the individual soul, without the necessity of the intermediaries like the church, priest, and sacrament. Protestantism is nothing but an extreme manifestation of Renaissance individualism in Northern Europe. It developed its own type of institutionalism in the theocracy proposed by John Calvin, 1509–64, and his Puritan followers. The New World. The discovery of New World by Christopher Columbus in 1492 and subsequent explorations of this continent and its settlement by Europeans spurred the imagination of the writers. Shakespeare's The Tempest and Prospero's colonization of the island are based on the contemporary account of a shipwreck on Bermuda and other writings about voyages to the New World. Economic exploitation of the New World, often devastating to the native peoples, is reflected obliquely in the play. The New Cosmos. The medieval Ptolemy believed in a stationary Earth around which rotated the successive spheres of the Moon, the various planets, and then the fixed stars. Heaven, or the Empyrean, was thought to be situated above the spheres, and hell at the center of the Earth or below the system of the spheres. The new Copernican system in 1543 proposed a system in which the center is the Sun, not the Earth, and in which the Earth is not stationary, but only one planet among many planets, all of which revolve around the Sun. Although it did not shock the existing theological and secular beliefs, it sparked skepticism among thinking men. The clash of values. The Renaissance was marked by a clash of values of two conflicting world orders: the medieval feudal order with its emphasis on religion and aristocratic values, and the interests of the emerging new middle class drawn to materialistic values. While the new order ushered in great socio-economic changes, it also led to moral and spiritual turmoils. 1.4 The Miracle and Mysteries. In course of time, the plays developed a secular tendency. In place of monks and priests, ordinary laymen began to take part in the dramas. More and more humorous scenes were introduced into the drama to provide a relief to the religious motif of the plays. The cycle of plays dealing with the chief scriptural events from the creation of man to the resurrection of Christ are called miracle plays or mysteries. Nichol points out the distinction between the two. Technically, there is a distinction between the two: miracles dealing with the lives of saints and mysteries with themes taken from the Bible. They were shown at separate stations in the town, on wheeled theaters, drawn by horses. Though several plays were staged, only 4 of the cycles have been preserved: those of Chester, 25 plays; York, 48 plays; Townley or Wakefield, 32 plays; and Coventry, 42 plays. This continued from the 13th to 15th centuries. 1.5 Morality plays. Morality plays are written and performed during the Middle Ages. It is a form of vernacular drama popular in the 15th and 16th centuries across Europe. Unlike miracle plays, which retold the stories of the Bible, and mystery plays, which recounted the history of saints, morality plays involved allegorical characters and concepts, the scenes of which were meant to teach various Christian doctrine, moral lessons, and the battle between good and evil. They were usually penned by clergymen, and anonymous in their authorship. The main theme of morality plays is the battle between good and evil. The main hero, who represents all of mankind, encounters various allegorical characters representing both sides of the battle, with good always triumphs at the end. Miracle plays were often performed during religious ceremonies, and relayed stories directly from the Bible. Morality plays, performed in public spaces, were allegorical stories representing church doctrine and the battle between good and evil. 1.6 Elizabethan theatre. The first theatre. There was no regular playhouse in England until the year 1576. The plays were performed either in the courtyards of the inns, or the halls of the royal palaces, or private theatres owned by the rich people. For want of permanent structures, the companies of actors moved from place to place, performing the plays in town halls, marketplaces, or in yards. The plays were generally looked down upon by the corporation authorities as agents of moral corruption, and hence not freely allowed. James Burbage, the renowned actor of the day, constructed the first theatre. Subsequently several theatres came up, of which Rose and Globe Theatre were most famous. Shakespeare's plays were staged in the Globe Theatre, of which he became a shareholder later. The Public Theatre. It was circular or octagonal instead of being rectangular in shape. This space, called the pit, was open to the sky and surrounded on all sides by rows of galleries, roofed over with thatch or tiles. From one side of it the stage projected. It was open, except at the back where 3 doors led to 3 rooms. One in the middle, called the inner stage, which could serve as a cave, a bedroom, a shop, and the like, Desdemona's bedchamber or the cell of Prospero. And one on either side used as dressing rooms. Above these, forming their roof, was an upper stage which could serve as a balcony, a rostrum or the battlements of a castle. Plays were performed only during daytime because there were no lighting arrangements. Theatrical scenes were unknown, and a card was usually hung on the pillars supporting the upper stage, indicating the scene of action. A change of scene was indicated by a quick change of the card. A tree in a tub might symbolize a forest, and a bed wheeled in might suggest a chamber. The scenes which could not be acted out were explained in appropriate speeches in the play itself. The pit and the yard were the main parts of the auditorium. The lower strata of people known as the groundlings used to stand in the space under in the pit. It was offered at cheaper rates. As the stage projected into the middle of the audience, there was close communion between the actors and the audience. The groundlings used to throw rotten eggs, tomatoes, etc. at the actors to express the disapproval. The seats in the boxes at the side of the stage were occupied by the upper classes. The Elizabethan audience loved brisk action, stirring declamation, the tragic and horrific, and the broadly comic. They enjoyed violent stage effects. Thunder and lightning, drums and trumpets, alarums and battle cries, and demonstrations of physical skill like wrestling bouts and sword play, which were performed by experts. The fool or clown was a highly popular figure on the stage. The audience likes music in the play. The producers spent lavishly on the actors' costumes. There were no women players and the women's roles were performed by men. It was only in the second half of the 17th century that actresses started to appear on the stage. 1.6 Conclusion. In this lesson you have learnt some concepts of Renaissance period. You are familiarized with particularly the features of Renaissance age. You have also come to know about the Elizabethan theatre. Now you are in position to form an idea on the salient features of the Elizabethan age. In the following lesson you will be introduced to other concepts of the age. 1.7 Self-check questions. 1. What are the important characteristic features of Renaissance? 2. Discuss the origin and development of Elizabethan theatre.